Just a quick word of warning before we get going that the following podcast will almost certainly contain spoilers and may also contain strong language and conversations of an adult nature.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Strong Language and Violent Scenes, the podcast giving a second chance to films that might not deserve them. I'm Mitch Bain, as ever, a film composer and the founder of ShockStreetHorror.com.
And I'm Mitch Stewart.
Are you just changing your name to Mitch for convenience?
Yeah, I think it's probably for the best.
So I am, of course, joined by my illustrious co-host, Andy Stewart, and we are being joined in the studio tonight. Really happy to have this guy on. He is the director of Knucklebones.
Yes.
A very warm welcome to Mr. Mitch Wilson. Mitch, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Hello, Mitches.
Hello, Mitch.
Okay, so I want to get straight into this. So you chose this pretty quick off the bat. You have cycled us back to 2000 with Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows.
Yes.
To begin with, so before we begin, we started leading in with this. So, what is your relationship with this film? Why have you chosen it today?
Okay, well, I was obviously a huge fan of the original Blair Witch. And like most people, I was there day one when Blair Witch 2 was released. And by the end of it, I wanted to burn down the movie theater.
Okay.
But a few years ago, I started reading articles online about people revisiting it, people that had never even seen the first Blair Witch, and it was getting really positive reviews. So I decided to watch it again, and now I'm a huge fan.
Interesting.
There's so much going on in this film. I mean, it's oppressive, it's unsettling. There's a lot of roadblocks for someone watching this movie. If you're a fan of the first Blair Witch, you will hate it because it doesn't deliver what you're expecting. And if you're not a fan of the first Blair Witch, you probably didn't see it. So but there's a whole new generation of kids that have discovered it. And I rewatched it again for in preparation for this, okay. And I watched it 2 times in a row. I love it.
Cool. Okay.
I love it too. I've got to be honest. I say I love it. It's a film that's kind of wheedled its way into my subconscious. It's a film that I was adamant, again, similar to Mitch, a film that I was adamant I despised. And I think I last watched it, again, prior to this, where I've watched it twice in preparation. It was a film that I didn't really have any inclination to go back and watch. And then I think I last watched it about 5 years ago. And it seemed to sit a lot better with me than it certainly did 5 years ago prior to that.
I hadn't seen this in a really long time, and I rewatched it last night ahead of this. I don't want to dig in too much into what I think of it just yet.
That's fine.
But what we will do just now, Mitch, and I know that you've listened to the podcast before, so you'll maybe know this is coming, but for the benefit of anyone who is listening tonight that hasn't seen the film, Andy's going to put 30 seconds on the clock, and we're looking for you to give us a 30-second synopsis. Are you good to go?
Sure.
Okay, right. Are you set?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so it's about a year since the original Blair Witch movie came out, both in the real world and in this movie. The Blair Witch movie exists in this movie. So we're already through the looking glass. Okay, so people from all over the world are flocking to Burkittsville, Maryland to be a part of the phenomenon. The story itself is about one particular tour group that is going to retrace the steps of the movie and try and find the witch. We've got a entrepreneur tour guide who's never actually...
Okay, what? That's time.
You're out of time, Mitch. You're out of time. We'll have to make up the rest of it as we go along.
Sorry about that. You can't really
Jesus.
say much without giving it away.
That's true. What the fuck is going on here? Right, okay.
Okay, that's something that you hit on crucially. I think it's kind of cool as an idea on paper. I like the idea of this being set in a universe where the Blair Witch is a film.
But the Blair Witch Project exists.
Yeah, sorry, the Blair Witch Project exists as a movie. I like that out of the gate, and I think that a lot. The pre-credits stuff. You know, like the kind of documentary style footage in town when you see how it's become this kind of tourist profiteering thing in Burkittsville, and I think a lot of the talking head stuff is really funny.
There's that really cool stuff before that kind of draws you into painting it as the kind of real world situation, where you've got the presumably real footage of guys like Kurt Loder and Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien and stuff talking about the film. So they kind of use that as a device to drum home the reality of it.
Right, and it's very strange that they do that. I mean, not a lot of movies acknowledge, like, imagine in Ghostbusters 2 if they're watching a movie of the first Ghostbusters. I mean, it's... And actually, the director is one of the first man-on-the-street interviews.
Yeah. He's Resident Joe.
That's kind of cool.
I like this kind of meta approach that it takes. I know that you're thinking, well, why didn't I like Detention? But it's an entirely different beast. I think the meta approach in this, and the way the meta approach is done, kind of using that found footage talking heads thing that the first film used so well, to kind of set things up before it does that kind of Rec 3 thing and goes in completely another direction.
I think it's pretty smart. I mean, out of the gate, I was on board with that as a conceit. I liked it.
One thing I would say is that the residents of Burkittsville, they aren't painted in the best light. They're pretty much painted as kind of toothless simpletons, which I thought was a bit cruel.
Yes, they really don't like their town being invaded, and I mean, it was just like real life. People were actually going there and harassing the people, and this movie kind of explores, is there a Blair Witch? And there were tons of people at the time that believed that the Blair Witch was real, and they wanted to go out there and try and find her.
Yeah, they really pushed that, didn't they, in the first film? They really, in the marketing of the first film, they really tried to blur the line between whether or not it was real or not.
Oh, yeah. I was there at ground zero. I was on a website late one night, and I saw a little stick figure icon, and I clicked on it, and I started reading all about this real event that had happened. And it was really creepy. And then we heard that there was a movie coming out, and I think it was the History Channel did like an hour documentary where, they treated it like it was a real subject. So when I saw the actual movie, leading into the end of the movie, I knew what was happening, and I was really into it. I never actually believed it, but as an aspiring screenwriter at the time, I was super jealous of it. I mean, it was very well done.
It's certainly one of the earliest viral marketing things I can remember.
Definitely.
I don't think that I had exactly appreciated that. I mean, I suppose it makes sense, but I don't think I'd really necessarily known that the kind of site of the first movie and stuff had been beset by people in real life who are trying to do what the people are doing in Blair Witch Book of Shadows, which is it kind of makes me like the pre-credits even more because of the way, I think, because one of the women who is being interviewed in there, she says something like, it's like, oh, I really wish they hadn't used the term documentary.
Oh, yeah. Well, because it convinced people it was real and they wanted to be part of that.
So I think that's so that's probably that probably makes it appreciate on a level that I didn't necessarily before. And then straight from there, we kind of hurtle straight into the credit sequence, which is an interesting one. One thing that I think is kind of, and we can get into this a little bit more as we go on, but one thing that I think is there's a lot of things about it. I think it's quite a brash film in a lot of ways.
Well, it's a film of a very certain time. I think I'd said, it's a particularly new metal film.
Yeah, and I think that that is no more true than in the opening sequence where you get this kind of, it's intercut with kind of ritual that's explained later, but basically you're getting this flyover of the woods, and you've got Disposable Teens by Marilyn Manson, kind of, which they absolutely rinse the licensing for that, because I think you get 2 verses, 2 choruses on the middle eight. It's the first instance of what felt like it was kind of quite a lot of meddling from Artisan. They put the film out.
Right, absolutely. This was the first of a lot of studio interference. Originally, the director wanted Frank Sinatra's Witchcraft.
Yeah,
he wanted a more satirical opening, because as we were talking about people that were obsessed with thinking the witch was real, by this time there had already been a huge backlash of people that felt duped then when they found out it wasn't real. So this movie is kind of embracing that, and kind of, like you said, it's a meta commentary on people that did believe at one time or still believe that the witch was real. So he was trying to he didn't want to just deliver another found footage movie, even though we would get hundreds more after this one. He wanted to try something completely different and make a comment on it.
Well, he's from a documentary background. He did the Metallica documentary.
Yes, well, at the time,
Some Kind of Monster.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, at the time he was super hot off of Paradise Lost, which was an HBO documentary about these goth teens that he felt were falsely accused of murdering children, and it was a hugely successful documentary. They made 2 more.
Was the West Memphis 3?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's Paradise Lost, yes.
Wow.
And then, yes, he recovered from Book of Shadows to go on to do Some Kind of Monster.
There's actually a bit in the woods where Sheriff Cravens, which I guess is probably a nod to Wes Craven, there's a bit where he's chasing, just like all these kind of goths are coming out of the woodwork, out of the trees, and he's kind of just standing with a megaphone, kind of shepherding all these goths away, like hundreds of them, and they're all kind of vanishing off under rocks and kind of moving away. Like it's
hilarious.
Pretty weird.
I can't tell if that character was part of the reshoots and the studio interference, or if he was always there and they just put in more of him. But he's such an odd character.
He's a weird guy. He's like a less chilled out Willie Nelson, and he's furious the whole time. Really furious. No wonder.
But he's at 11 the entire time. Yeah.
I mean, so he's got like the backwoods accent going, and it seems like a studio note to me, because the rest of the film is pretty much, like you said, just like the new metal horror that they were making at the time. I believe it's well acted, it's well directed. I mean, there's a good movie in there, and a lot of studio interference actually makes it even more fascinating to me.
I think that there's like the more that I read about it after I'd seen it, I think the more I think there's an element of truth to what you're saying. And it hadn't actually entered my head that Sheriff Cravens would have been a reshoot or a studio note to amplify his presence in it or whatever. But now you say it kind of makes perfect sense.
Well, the psychiatric hospital stuff was definitely inserted after the fact, and he's so involved in that, it seems like he might have been added later. But then at the very end, no spoilers, seems like he was in there all along, so maybe they just beefed up his role.
Well, you can spoil, Mitch. We'll head this up with a spoiler warning.
We always do. We always do.
Spoil. That scene in the psychiatric hospital I found quite perplexing. The treatment seems kind of strange and unusual.
The doctor is smoking, as he's obviously not sticking a tube down the guy's.
Yeah, he's just moving.
The most basic practical effect of just the camera angle,
and just keep your hands moving up and down the tube, so it looks like it's going through.
And then the POV looking up at the doctors later, with one is like clearly in a SS uniform.
That was a baffling moment.
Yeah, and one's got what appears to be a fake, like a prosthetic nose.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Apparently the studio's notes, they didn't think it was violent enough, so we have all these random visions of violence that actually spoils the payoff at the end, I think. And it's littered throughout the movie. And I don't know why they wanted it to be like that, because the Blair Witch didn't have violence in it.
No.
I mean, it was all about perceived
it was all about implication.
Violence.
Yeah.
That was what was great about it. And then another thing is they felt that there wasn't a main bad guy. So they added this psychiatric hospital backstory.
Which also doesn't really introduce any kind of like principal antagonist either.
No. It just shows a very, very, very horrible way to treat psychiatric patients.
It's like, so they were creating the conflict between him and the sheriff, where the conflict could have just been this guy was going and selling dirt from the woods on the internet and feeding into this hysteria and profiting off of it.
And he's also fencing a lot of stolen goods, judging by his house. He's got just shit everywhere.
Almost the entire movie is in his art-directed home, and it's like it feels very. I don't know where they spent the budget on this movie.
Oh man,
it probably went right in the producer's pocket.
I found out that the ruins of the Rustin Parr house, where kind of the main kind of drinking party scene takes place, it was just polystyrene blocks.
Really?
Yeah. They've obviously not spent much money. I built a well out of polystyrene blocks for a film I did. Didn't cost much, I can tell you.
But it did have a decent-sized budget. And this movie made money. And it's so weird, there still isn't a Blu-ray release in the U.S.
It's pretty surprising. It's pretty surprising.
I don't think we have one here either. The one I've got is still an old... I think it's an old Optimum release special edition thing.
And I'll tell you why, because no one wants to be the guy in the meeting that says, okay, what do we want to put out on Blu-ray? Book Shadows.
I tell you, I'll fucking buy it, though.
Even though it would have made money. I mean, it was, people would have bought it.
Definitely.
It's just like they're ashamed of it or whatever. And when I went and I had to buy a new copy to prepare for this, and the guy at the video store, I was like, do you have the Blu-ray? And he immediately said, no, they've never released a Blu-ray. So this was like, this week, there was a guy telling me, no, but there's a director's cut coming out, and we expect a Blu-ray, very soon. And so people are just fascinated with this movie.
There's an audience for it still, for sure. Yeah. So I want to pull this linear a little bit here, because obviously after the pre-credits, what we get is we get introduction to basically like your main characters. They're all on Jeff, who, for clarity, is the psychiatric patient of the pre-credits. Or the psychiatric patient of the film, should I say, that you see in flashback. And he's the tour guide, and they're in the bus, the van, and they're heading out. And you've got Stephen and Tristan.
Yep.
The couple. Tristan is expecting, their author is writing a book on the Blair Witch phenomenon.
Yeah.
History or Hysteria, I believe.
Oh, right,
and you've got
Hysteria
Erica.
or history.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So,
they argue about
Get
it.
Get it right.
Yeah, that's right. Erica, the Wiccan, which we'll get to, and Kim, inevitably the goth. And it's at this point that Jeff, in a moment I quite enjoyed, where like Jeff kind of admits that he has never actually done a tour before, and he's just flying as blindly into it as any of the rest of them are.
Well, I think it's more a misunderstanding, because Jeff doesn't claim to have done a tour before. It's said something like 10,000 hours or something like that, but it's something to do with 10,000 browsing hours on his Blair Witch store.
Well, it's 10,000 satisfied customers of his merch store.
Of course.
Merch store selling twigmen and dirt online.
Bags of dirt.
See, that just reminds me of a line that really made me laugh in the opening sequence, when you've got the woman that's talking about selling rocks and stuff from the site, and she's like, "Oh, we made some money off it, but not as much as we thought to, because it costs a lot of money to ship a rock."
Yeah. That's an awesome line.
It's so funny. It's half in delivery, which obviously I don't have. So they head out and they camp out in the ruins of Rustin Parr's house.
Yeah. Rustin Parr being a killer who killed 7 kids and plays a big part in the Blair Witch mythology.
Yeah.
But real quick, talking about the character names. Originally, they all used their real names, just like in the Blair Witch Project movie.
Okay.
But the marketing department thought that was weird, so they just kept their first names.
Yeah.
So it's all their real first names, but they made up last names.
No way.
Yeah, Kim, the character Kim, her surname's Diamond, and somebody somewhere said it sounds a bit like King Diamond.
Oh, she's Kim Director in real life, isn't she? That's right.
Yeah, she's a
also
queen.
Cool. Also quite cool.
So one thing I was going to say was when they set up and they kind of like they start drinking and smoking and stuff, and this kind of ties in with what I was saying about how, when we're talking about they wanted witchcraft for the opening sequence and they went with disposable teens instead.
Well, that ties you into a certain genre of music.
Well, I think it's kind of funny that it's like, but it just reminds, and also, I mean, you find out that Erica, not only is she Wiccan, but she is also a witch who is the daughter of an Episcopalian priest.
But is she?
Well, yeah, we can get to that. But I think that with that and kind of when they start partying and it starts the debauchery scene, if you like, is soundtrack with Feel Good Hit of the Summer by Queens of the Stone Age. Yeah. And I'm just thinking it was just like every single element of this is turned up to 11 to be as kind of
on the nose.
Yeah, it's pretty
edgy.
Blunt,
edgy. Edgy's a great one.
And that is my wheelhouse, baby. I'm all over the Marilyn Manson. And again, that was all studio stuff, but they were trying to match the other horror movies that were out rather than not trust the director or repeat what they did on the first Blair Witch, which would have been the easiest thing to do. I don't know why they didn't.
But it sounds like they were playing into what was kind of fashionable, what was kind of on trend at the time in horror.
It feels like Buffy. It feels like TV.
Yeah, it's very slick.
So once they camp out, we get one of my favorite moments or sequences in the film.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best. One of the best scenes.
You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. When the
is this the weird West Side Story rivalry between the two tour groups?
Now, Mitch, you're gonna have to help us out here. I know that they're the Blair Witch Hunt. What's the other one?
Oh, I've got it. It's the Blair Witch Walk.
It's the Hunt Against the Walk. Yeah, this sequence is one of my favorites.
Oh, definitely. There's another group led by another tour guy that doesn't look like he's done this very much, and they have they have someone from Germany, and it looks like Asian couple. And then he has like an assistant with him, 2 locals running the tour, and they get into it with our group because they're fighting over who gets to spend the night at the house.
In the ruins. Yeah.
That's right. Of course.
I think that this scene's one of the reasons that this scene is one of my favorites in there is because I think that, like, for whatever problems I have with some of the darker moments in it, I think that when this film is setting out to be funny, it is very funny. Like, when things are played for laughs, they're played for laughs pretty effectively.
Is it?
I think so. I laughed a lot at this, and I think that some of the kind of rivalry stuff there was kind of designed to be kind of funny. Do you think, Mitch?
I don't know. I mean, I like the scenes I thought you were going to talk about the party scenes. Those were my favorite.
Those
things.
are great.
I mean, I like that I thought it was clever how they tricked the other group.
That was
into
good.
going to Coffin Rock.
A terrible
They
mistake.
said they act all freaked out like they just went to Coffin Rock, so they tricked the other group into going there because their tour guests immediately say, "We want to see it. I didn't come all the way from Germany, to sit under this tree." By the way, there's a giant tree on this house that he says this tree shouldn't be here. They couldn't have built a house around this tree. And then it comes in later where it's just like a sapling
A twig.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
on the
a twig.
video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was
it's around this time that some spooky shit starts going down. But the party is amazing. It's off the chain for a party.
But I think I think they're fun. I think it's humorous banter going on through all this. I didn't have a problem with any of the stuff, and it was the two tour guides, two bullshit artists going after each other. You don't have a permit and all this. I mean, I thought that was all very well done.
Yeah, I like that stuff too.
Weird little turf war over
And
there.
I do think a lot of the exchanges are very funny. Like our goth chick who's mysteriously psychic for no reason whatsoever, and it's never explained.
She doesn't
Never explained.
She doesn't seem particularly good at it. It's not consistent.
No, but that's
Otherwise, she could have maybe been some help.
because this does pose into that, yeah, because that's the next thing, isn't it? After the kind of party sequence, they wake up and a lot of Stephen and Tristan's work has been kind of shredded.
Oh, I love that. I love the shredded paper rain thing.
Oh, we're skipping past the partying.
Oh no, we don't
Back
have
to the
to.
partying.
Oh no, we don't have to.
Yeah, okay, so before the other group even shows up, they start pairing up.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the couple that's writing the book, and then we've got our tour guide. He's flirting with both the Wiccan and the goth chick, and he's pretending he's going to film a documentary of them, where we literally get the mission statement of the film, which is "Video never lies, film does."
Oh,
Ah.
there you go.
That literally sets up the whole twist at the end, and it's really the whole meta statement of this movie, where
everything shot. Everything shot in, I guess, third person, as it were, is bullshit.
definitely. Plus, I love the song that they play when they're all partying. It's all very cool.
There's a few when they kind of break out the weed. Mind by System of a Down comes on to kind of illustrate how trippy it's all getting.
But he's basically trying to get laid by using his video camera.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's trying to manipulate them. Yeah.
It's never worked for me. Never. In fact, quite the opposite.
Okay, I'm sorry. So the next morning.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
One last thing. The goth chick, they're worried about the group coming back later that night from Coffin Rock, so they're going to party all night.
Yeah.
And the goth chick said they're not coming back.
Oh,
And they're like, "How do you know?" She's like, "I just know." So
Oh yeah.
ominous tones. I think the film does a good job of blurring the line of, jumping ahead a little bit, who might be responsible as things get weirder. It's quite clever on bouncing from person to person.
Yeah.
everyone has their own reasons for being there. I think they're very well fleshed out.
I'd be inclined to agree with that. But I think when we wake up in the morning and as you said, I think that the kind of shredded paper rain thing looks really cool, and there's a proper kind of there's a real what the fuck when you're kind of waiting to figure out exactly what that is. But yeah, another kind of flash of psychicness from Kim when she kind of identifies the tapes and stuff to find the tapes.
Oh yeah.
Which she's the suspect for the rest of the movie. She should be. How do you explain that psychic knowledge?
That's true. That is it's about the most suspicious thing you can do.
Yes. They're buried in the ground. I just happen to know that. And by the way, seeing that book shredded, I mean, it's a great visual, but also as a writer, it's super traumatic. This book that this guy has been working on, their Blair Witch book, is like in a million pieces coming down like snow all around them.
Yeah.
And all of the tour guide's camera equipment has been smashed.
He has an incredible amount of camera equipment.
Right.
He brought a lot of camera equipment, thousands upon thousands of dollars worth. And then you can't feel sorry for him for too long because it turns out he's got hundreds and hundreds more at home. He's got so much camera equipment.
It's potentially one of the weirdest homes I've ever seen in a film.
Yeah, it's overly produced, super art directed movie house that he could never afford. I mean, even his refrigerator is cool. I mean, it's
Well, he says that he bought it for $1.
oh,
So he's
so they have to explain why he has this amazing place.
Yeah.
So he's an aspiring documentarian and master negotiator.
Yes,
And stolen goods fence.
And stolen goods fence, yeah.
he's a hustler. He buys low, sells high.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's a hustler in every sense. But I think that I what I would say as the drama escalates and you kind of start when they start kind of shouting the odds at each other about who may or may not have done something during the night or whatever. As the paranoia kind of escalates, I feel like that's where the cracks started to appear in some of the performances for me. And I feel like that's probably true of, I think that like when kind of like fairly intense character stuff happens, and when they're interacting with each other, I think that that's where I start to feel like the performances. And here, I think specifically, I'm probably talking about Stephen. I would say he kind of wavers the most out of everybody in there for me.
Stephen's my least favourite character in the film. It strikes me as an odd slice of casting as well. Yeah.
He never did anything after this, by the way.
Oh, really?
Not a single thing, really.
Maybe a few things, but I looked up everyone, and he disappeared pretty quickly.
Okay. Had he done much before?
I'm not sure.
That's something I'd be curious about. But no, I like I say, and when I say performances, I probably mean him, to be honest. And it's at this point, obviously, you get kind of like the biggest kind of first act dramatic thing, which is obviously like Tristan miscarries.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah, that's heavy.
Which is
super heavy.
Yeah.
There's a bloody baby in a river.
Yeah, it's really, and it's kind of comes out of nowhere, and
it really does. Yeah.
And there's the bit with Kim as well where she's saying, "Oh, you're pregnant, aren't you? And you don't want to have this baby, do you?" And she's like, No, I don't. And then she spends the whole night at the party drinking, taking drugs, doing everything that everyone else is doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she goes quite hard down the route of trying to lose the baby in this one night, which is also super fucking dark.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of like it's actually kind of weird that is treated so casually.
Yeah. I cannot defend that plot line.
No,
I don't know what they were trying to do.
In fairness, I mean, like, it's not necessarily something you even have to defend. It's like an interesting choice. But I think that the way it's treated is really interesting, in that like everyone, including Steven, is sort of blasé about it, because he calls her on it like one time, and then after that they're kind of just away. She just kind of shrugs it off and they carry on. But anyway,
yeah, they just let her go as well from the hospital. Like they don't. There's no great aftercare. I don't know if maybe that's just an American thing, but I mean, it's definitely. It struck me as weird. Sorry, Mitch.
That wasn't intended as a jab.
Too real.
We've got the luxury. We can hang out at the hospital all day, as much as we like.
I think it was just like a horror plot device. I mean,
it's
just
agree,
a reason.
Yeah.
It's just a reason for the goth chick to mysteriously go, "Hey, you're pregnant. How do you know that?" I don't know. And then we get our weird scene, and then it's totally dropped. It is unsettling and adds to the atmosphere a little, but the fact that they don't go anywhere with it or really explain what the argument was, she wanted to have it and he didn't, or something.
I think that like that conflict isn't necessarily particularly well addressed, although it does kind of rear its head a little bit in the third act in a way.
I mean, they use it as a plot device for there being blood in the van.
That's right.
That's really it.
Yeah. They address that early in the movie to where you think that's what it is.
Yeah.
But then later on, it may just be the blood from the. Spoiler alert, they totally butchered the other tour group.
And if you haven't...
In the middle of the night, and they don't remember it.
Yeah. It's like, that could be any one of about 8 people's blood, to be fair.
And if you haven't noticed, if you haven't kind of got it by this point in the film, then you haven't been paying attention, because the same recycled murder scenes are played over and over and over again. So if you haven't figured it out, then yeah.
Right, in the first one they show, you can clearly see one of the tourists. You recognize him.
Yeah.
Later on, they kind of hide it a little bit.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that they do that one first, then they get progressively more oblique about it as it goes on, rather than like building towards a reveal.
But you're not sure exactly who did it, and the whole movie now is trying. I mean, everyone that is watching this movie is waiting for the witch, so they think one of these people is either the witch or possessed by the witch, and maybe think that just one or two of them did it.
And then you get kind of tantalising glimpses of things that, is that the witch? Oh no, it's a weird little girl ghost.
Right.
Which is terrible.
Yes. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, the Galgos thing, so that you first see her in the hospital, but she reappears a couple of times. And I think that like the actual look of her is fine. The movement, I think, is what yanks you out of it.
But it plays into that backwards thing that they keep talking about, I think.
Also true.
Is she not always playing in reverse?
Yeah, she's
walking in reverse.
Yeah, she's moving backwards in and like out of scenes and things like that. So yeah, that could be it. But after Tristan she gets out of hospital and stuff, and then they all decant themselves to Jeff's, the previously mentioned weird house.
Yeah, a factory. He lives in a factory.
Yeah, he lives in a factory.
A broom factory.
Oh, is that what they made?
Yeah.
Yes. And I set Knucklebones in a garment factory because they're secretly making Nazi uniforms. But yeah, when you actually say it, it doesn't sound that spooky.
Yeah, but I get like one line I really like when they get there as well. So when obviously I can't remember who it is in the group, but someone's kind of apprehensive about the look of the place or whatever, and they're crossing the little bridge to it. And Jeff's like, "Oh, it's totally safe. It's totally safe. Don't lean on that railing."
Yeah, that comes into play later on again.
Yeah, it's Chekhov's railing.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, yes, because you have to isolate your group, and you can't just have them leave the house, even though one of them does in the car and goes to town.
Wow.
But they get rid of the bridge at some point, or do they? It's an illusion.
Geez.
We don't know.
Who the fuck knows? But this whole build-up, I feel, just worked better set in the woods in the first film. The openness of the woods, I felt, just lended itself more to a much more oppressive, weirdly, given that it's outside, a much more oppressive atmosphere than this weird, clearly a set.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I love the woods thing too. I grew up by woods, so as a little kid, I would go play in the woods. I've gotten lost in the woods, so woods are very spooky to me. But this house, I mean, it's so bizarre that they set the rest of the movie here. And I'm going to make a comparison that I hope doesn't invalidate everything else. But they're kind of doing the thing where they're all trapped in this house, and one of them may or may not be the witch for the rest of the movie, even though they're not totally trapped in the house. And this is where the movie gets really interesting to me. I'm interested to see where it's going to play out. The first time, I'm interested to see the witch. But when you know that that's not going to happen, then you can just enjoy the mystery that the director is creating.
And I think it's quite effective. Going back to what I said, I think it does a good job of bouncing that question of who is the witch from character to character. Everybody gets their turn, as it were, of being the witch.
Yes, and they're all marked by the Wiccan alphabet, which looks like poison oak on their bodies. And it's all growing. And there's a lot of random stuff that seems random that I think pays off really well in the end.
Yeah, okay.
Do you disagree, Mitch?
No. I think that's fair.
Okay, let's go back to Video Never Lies, film does. So everything we're seeing isn't actually happening. So these seemingly random things are actually clues that they're in the dream world or whatever right now. And all of the truth is on the videotapes that they're watching.
No, I mean, I think you're hitting on something interesting that we'll dig into a little bit later about the Video Never Lies film does.
It plays into it does a great job of building that group psychosis.
Yeah,
definitely. Which is Stephen's point earlier writing the book. I think one of the reasons you don't like him is because he's the non-believer. So subconsciously he's the stick in the mud.
Yeah,
but he thinks it's all mass hysteria, group psychosis, the Blair Witch phenomenon itself. And then, like you said, they're introducing it here. It's a little microcosm.
And he arguably winds up the most hysterical out of the lot of them.
Oh, yeah. And he totally says the line everyone in the theater that is thinking, this is fucking bullshit. The last line of the movie is, I mean, I hate to use the word troll, but it's such a troll.
So shortly after this, we have this thing. We have when they're rewatching the footage and they find in the middle of the night you have
Erica.
It turns out to be Erica, who's the naked woman dancing around the tree.
I had such a crush on Erica the first time I saw this.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
I had a crush on her. I had a massive crush on Erica when I last watched this.
Yeah,
yesterday.
me too.
But yes.
Yeah, me too. Jesus.
But yeah, so they confront her about that, and she understandably is pretty upset because she doesn't remember it. And then she goes into another room to do some kind of Wiccan praying, I assume. Mitch, I have a question for you. So, see the scene of Erica sitting praying in the pentagram of candles?
To Persephone?
Yes.
Yes.
It reminded me a little of the kind of like one of the most frequently kind of shared and most seen shots from Knucklebones. Was that intentional?
Oh, no. I mean, that's been in a lot of movies. Knucklebones was more of a Jumanji. I wanted to do a horror version of Jumanji. And I've always been a gamer, so I love dice, and the human Knucklebones just kind of played into that. It was more of obviously Freddy Krueger has the nursery rhyme thing, but I was kind of inspired after seeing Pumpkinhead.
Oh, I love Pumpkinhead.
That was kind of the setup of the summoning and the nursery rhyme they use in that. I'm a big fan of.
Okay.
But no, it's, hot chick around a pentagram.
How can you go wrong?
Exactly.
another good sequence, or a sequence I liked, comes after this. You've got Kim going to the gas station.
Oh, I love it.
And what I would say, actually, like, on her way in to the gas station when she goes there, you run into some, like, what I would describe as, like, surprisingly genre-literate creeps.
Right.
Because someone's like, hey, Morticia, and I was like, oh, that's, like, quite niche for this guy. And then the next one's like, hey, Elvira, and I was like, wow. These guys have done their homework.
Hey, Vampira.
Right. They're just three of them right in a row. Each one says their line. Then he goes in. And then later when you see them throwing rocks at her, they're in the exact same line. In the row. Yeah, so they're the locals.
It's just easier.
They're the banjo kids.
And then there's that little, again, everyone's painted in such a bad light in this town. There's the real kind of, like, the mechanic guy under the fridge who can barely string two sentences together. And then you've got
and he is supposed to be the guy that killed the children.
He's supposed to be Rustin Parr.
Yes, and
right,
that's really getting into the going down the rabbit hole of S. Rever, which we can touch on later if y'all want to.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
No, I didn't go down the full, and I watched this twice back to back, and then the message on my DVD, the message comes up at the end to follow the S. Rever thing, but I couldn't be bothered. I was then having to invest more time.
Mitch, if you want to expand on that right now, you can.
Okay, so it was only for the video release. So they kind of they added all these images in the movie, and it was kind of a puzzle. S. Rever is the word reverse backwards. Super clever.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just like images in the smoke from the fire. It says seek, and when Kim Diamond is laying on the tombstone at the very beginning, it has different words on it.
Yeah.
Every time they cut back to it. And then one of the characters speaks backwards in the film. So
that's right. Tristan
yes,
Tristan said something backwards at one point.
Yes. So and the whole thing led to a website where if you typed in the thing, you would get some prize or whatever. But it's basically says seek not the children, and then there's this whole. But the fact that it was just done as a marketing ploy for I don't really count that as part of the intention of the filmmaker. So, no. But it's just another one of those crazy fan theories going around.
I mean, I'm not against it. It's something quite fun.
Did you have the video version? My version didn't have that.
No,
so
I've got it on the DVD. It comes up at the end of the DVD, and you can select to go backwards, and it lets you go backwards, and I think it kind of talks you through it as you go back the way or something. I don't know. I didn't.
So I guess it's supposed to be similar to the reversal of the videotape they're watching.
Absolutely.
So
that's kind of cool. We should do that at some point. I'd be up for doing that. When
the director's cut comes out.
Yes.
It'll be out very soon, according to this employee that sold me this DVD.
I don't know much about that guy, but I trust him.
Hey, some of the most film-savvy guys I've ever met in my life have worked in DVD shops or video stores.
Absolutely.
So I would
definitely
put a lot of stock in what this gentleman says.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We get the altercation between Kim and Peggy, I believe her name is, at the gas station.
Yeah.
Which escalates pretty quickly, whether it's imagined or not. Whether the outcome's the same. It's like,
I don't think it escalates quickly. Kim is provoked quite heavily. Whether or not she's right to stick a nail file in her, probably not. But she's provoked quite hard.
So yeah, that's kind of left. That's kind of left as a standalone kind of interaction for now.
Mm-hmm.
And then she heads back, and I think again we've kind of got a pretty marked gear shift at this point because it kind of starts to, and this is the point where it really starts to ladle on some pretty heavy revelations.
I like when she kind of dunts the car a little bit into the tree.
Yeah,
and she comes back and says to Jeff, "Oh, look, I kind of bumped your car a little bit," and he gets up in the morning and the car's fucking destroyed.
Yeah. And even then, he's not super pissed. It's like I couldn't understand their relationship. Like they had to go to the graveyard to get her, but she says she drove a long way to get there. But they act like, he's totally cool with his car being totaled by a stranger.
I did kind of think, I was like, why is he not furious about this?
And it feels, does he know Erica already? It feels like they know each other.
No, he did not, because remember they call her parents.
Of course,
and she doesn't exist.
Yeah, so
which they never explain.
but yeah, this is probably like it gets like a few kind of mystifying things happen in fairly quick succession at this point because you've got Erica, yeah, like I said, they go missing, so they call her. They don't call her parents; they call her hometown. They call the church.
Right, the church. Yeah,
And it's identified at that point that it's not just that I have no daughter. Kind of, it's not an expression. He genuinely has no daughter.
They've never had a daughter.
And it's also at this point that Sheriff Cravens resurfaces and kind of calls Jeff to openly rib him at the fact that he's a suspect in the murder of the other tour group.
He calls him from the back of a news report. Like, he's standing in the background of a news report shouting, which anyone watching presumably would be able to hear if it was real. But yeah, he's in the back of a news report angrily taunting Jeff that he's a suspect in a multiple murder.
I don't remember that. Yeah, I don't remember that in the film.
Yeah, there's a bit where Cravens is like, turn the goddamn TV on. Sorry for the bad American accent.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah, and then the news reporter's going, 5 bodies found at Coffin Rock. And then Sheriff Cravens wanders on in the background and he's still on the phone shouting that he's a suspect in
That's what's great. That's what's great about this movie. Every time you watch it, you discover something new. There's so much going on like that. Like the big tree at the very beginning is the biggest clue that this is all an illusion. Like when you see that tree is a sapling, everything that is going on is like she may be the witch. Maybe he's possessed by the witch, but it's all red herrings.
There's a lot of misdirection.
I feel like the delivery of dialogue starts getting quite bad towards the end. The more insane people start behaving, I found myself cringing a lot more than I remembered.
Yeah, I think that the grip on the material loosens a bit as the kind of.
But then I guess between each other the grip on the film overall, I mean, it might have seemed different until the studio got involved. There's a lot to be said about editing, and how an edit can make your film look and in terms of pacing. So yeah, it might be simply an editing issue because they recut the fuck out of it.
Right. Well, as soon as you see the first scene of him being interrogated, the police interrogation scene, that was added to try and save the film, because that's kind of like adding voiceover to your movie after the fact. They can explain, and they still do it with movies now, and sometimes it's a director's choice, but a lot of times it's going back in with these interviews to fill in the holes for something the audience didn't understand. And I think a lot of the bad dialogue is in those scenes.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mitch, if you were recutting this yourself, what would you leave out, or how would you retell it?
I would not show any of the violence early in the movie. I would build the mystery longer. You're saying without setting it in the woods, but still staying in this house.
Yeah.
So I would add, since they tried to make it like a traditional horror movie at the time, it could maybe use a couple more scenes of blood, even though we had the baby. We have the claw marks on Steven's stomach, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah. I love that. And the eating of the owl. There's some, she has a good munch on an owl.
Definitely. Yeah, that was a good cut. We cussed to her eating the Harry Potter owl. So I would save it all to mystery at the very end. I wouldn't give away the movie in the first 5 minutes of the film the way they did. That's the main thing I would do. But there has to be missing scenes, and that's kind of the reason I chose this movie, is to continue the push to get a director's cut.
Every little helps.
I'll decrease awareness, because like I say, I think it's engaging. It's very watchable, but I would just love to see what got cut out.
Now, Joe Berlinger didn't particularly like the final cut. Dan Myrick and Ed Sanchez didn't particularly like the film at all. They were more or less executive producers in name only.
Right.
Audiences didn't particularly enjoy the film, although, as we said, it did okay financially. Do you think that the film was really just a kind of victim of... Because they did that thing where they pushed it out really quickly to get a sequel out in a year. Do you think that was maybe why people are coming around to liking it more these days?
Because it was pushed out fast?
Or maybe because now that people have had time to kind of get over Blair Witch hysteria, as it were.
Well, I definitely think that we don't have the Blair Witch hysteria now, so I think it can be judged just as a movie and not as the sequel to Blair Witch. As the sequel to Blair Witch, it's an atrocity. I mean, it's, he tried to go in a completely different direction, and rarely does that work. It's an admirable choice, though. I mean, James Cameron did it with Aliens. He took a horror movie and then he made a sequel which was an action movie. But, this director is not exactly James Cameron. So
he's not.
Doesn't quite succeed. But yeah, Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez, who did the original movie, said they were going to skip this one and that they would do the third movie because the studio wanted to push one out so fast. And it didn't work out so well.
Jeez. Yeah. True.
There's a bit later on when things start getting really crazy towards the end of Tristan, when Jeff calls her, screams at her, "Witch bitch!" And it just made me really want to watch Death Spa. I don't know if you've seen Death Spa, Mitch.
I have not.
You need to check out Death Spa. But that was the original title of Death Spa. And I thought, I kind of wish I was watching Death Spa.
Death Spa, I believe, on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's 10 times more fun.
I think Tristan, as you get towards the end and kind of Tristan comes to the forefront and is kind of becomes the kind of centerpiece character in a lot of ways. I think her performance, not bad.
Yeah, pretty strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's given the meatiest, the most meat to play with throughout. She's got the miscarriage story, and where she spends the longest time under suspicion of being the witch.
Right, because at that point, everyone else has basically been eliminated.
Yeah.
So, and she was the most unsuspecting at that point, and she starts acting like she is the witch.
She's talking backwards.
Exactly.
Isn't normal.
and she's not mousy anymore.
Yeah.
She's in their face. So.
In fact, I think that that particular shift, when they have the kind of the main confrontation with her, and she's kind of alternating between kind of egging them on and being kind of like fearful and kind of a little bit more like the character that we've known up to this point. When she's egging on Steven and she ties the rope around her own neck and stuff, I thought that was genuinely pretty creepy. I enjoyed that a lot. It's kind of like, I think that
definitely,
yeah, it's my favorite, of the kind of end action and stuff like that. It's the part that kind of got to me the most.
Can I just talk very briefly about the kind of reveal video once they kind of start to figure out what happened in the missing hours that they've got? That must have been so fucking fun to film.
Oh yeah, the orgy and everything.
The orgy and just a shitty camera and just saying to people, just roll around in the dirt and kind of kiss each other and just
bacchanal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Orgy of blood.
Yeah. I love how they kind of figure it out with the reversal thing, but I don't actually, because they say, play the video backwards, and they play it backwards and nothing happens, and then he goes, why don't you try doing your keystrokes backwards? Which to me seems much lamer than if they just played it backwards and it worked.
Earlier they're like, we've identified the girl dancing. And they're like, how? He's like, I enlarged it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
This guy is a genius editor. Yeah, they mentioned earlier that he's an editor. And he keeps a lot of his editing equipment in his.
He does say himself,
house.
Yeah, I've got some pretty cool editing equipment. Why don't you all come back and see it?
I enlarged it.
No thanks. My girlfriend's just had a miscarriage. I'm going to fuck off home.
I enlarged it. That's brilliant. So yeah, just to kind of get to the bones of what we're talking about, it eventually comes out that all of the murders have been perpetrated by our protagonists in ways that that are kind of unveiled through video playback and a couple of different backdrops towards the end. I enjoyed this as a snapback ending.
Yeah, I liked it.
I dug it. I
love it.
Yeah. I think it's
so great.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, do you want to talk about what about it that appeals to you?
Well, I mean, it's a awesome mindfuck. The whole movie has been a mindfuck of these people. They've just been toyed with the entire movie, and then they find out by watching the videotape what actually happened is that they were possessed by the spirit of the witch or marked by the witch, and that they have committed all these brutal disembowel, Jeffrey. They have committed these horrible murders, and that they were all accusing each other of being a witch, but they are the ones that actually did it, and obviously motivated by being near the woods. I'm not sure if they're still in the woods. I know they're on the outskirts of the woods.
Yeah,
they brought something with them. Yeah, woods adjacent. Exactly. So I love it. I think it's a great. I mean, you asked me what I would do differently. I would have put the witch in there somewhere. The new Blair Witch. I like that they put the witch in it. I like that. I like the claustrophobia at the end. There were a lot of things I didn't like about it, but I mean, this movie. Okay, first of all, it's called Book of Shadows. There is no Book of Shadows in the movie at all.
That's true.
The book is called History or Hysteria. Hysteria History.
But you're right. That's not even obliquely referenced, is it?
No, never.
But the first movie's called The Blair Witch Project. There's no witch. That was one of the biggest complaints of the first movie is people that didn't like the movie were mad they didn't get to see the witch. And the whole point of the movie is that you didn't see the witch, and it was all,
So
what you imagine is worse than what you see. But I'm also a big fan of give the people what they want and show the monster sometimes. But, I think he was just mimicking again, making a meta commentary on the first movie and everyone's reactions to it. But why is it called Book of Shadows? There's absolutely no reason.
That's so true. That had not even occurred to me.
again, I wonder if that was just some studio guy.
They say it was. And the movie isn't even titled Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows.
It's the other way
They put
around.
Book of Shadows first. They are proud to call this. I think that it might have been another script that was floating around, kind of like Saw 2 wasn't originally going to be a Saw movie.
Yeah.
And then they're like, it's similar to, maybe there's something called Book of Shadows, that there was a Book of Shadows in that script, and then they just modified this.
So we're just about the end here, Mitch. Any closing statements?
Yeah.
Well, I think we really glossed over Erica the Wiccan in this movie. I mean, the title of your podcast is Strong Language of Violent Scenes and Nudity.
Yay!
She's very, very naked throughout the movie, which is a horror movie trope from the 70s and 80s that didn't quite make it to this time. So for the time, I thought it was a weird choice, but it really ties into her being a witch, And I don't know, like you said, she looks very similar to Dizzy from Starship Troopers.
Yes.
She's got kind of that vibe to her, but I thought she did a great job, and she was a great witch, and I thought that, there's a lot to like in this movie.
I'm inclined to agree. I think the ending is maddeningly abrupt.
Oh, do you think so?
The cut from Stephen to the woods, and then that's it, finished.
Okay, Mitch, what's your take on that as an argument?
That it's an abrupt ending?
Yeah. Or that it's abrupt to its detriment.
Well, it doesn't help that the character goes, "This is bullshit."
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally what everyone in the audience was thinking at the time. But no, I mean, it's they find out they've been tricked. It's a mind fuck. I think it's a great ending for that movie.
When I saw it the first time, I thought, oh, that's the woods now, what's happening now? And then the credits came on. And when I watched it the other night, I did the same thing again. He goes, this is bullshit, woods, what's happening now? Oh, the end. And it annoyed me.
I like it. I actually like the abruptness of it. Okay. I think that I like the fact that it feels like a what the fuck moment for the audience as much as the what the fuck moments that are going on in the film for the characters. And I think that the fact that it stops so abruptly without any further explanation actually kind of suits it. I didn't think it was abrupt at all until you mentioned it, to be honest. I kind of quite like the hard stop.
Yeah, I mean, it was so weird that they chose this guy hot off of this documentary film to make a sequel to their breakout documentary hit and then have him do a conventional movie. And it literally seems like the ending, he's literally saying, "Ha, fuck you, leave."
Go home and think about it.
Although
no witch.
Yeah, no witch, no, like, nothing that you came here hoping for. But then he does kind of pay some fan service, I suppose, over the credits with some shaky camera footage of trees. You do get that small payoff on the way out of watching some shaky trees, if you stay that long.
Mitch, we did touch on it a little bit earlier, but what was your take on the third movie, the Simon Barrett, Adam Wingard one? Yeah, what did you think of that?
I liked the first and third acts. Second act kind of lost me. There were so many things that were set up that weren't paid off, like the drone, and it's been a while since I've seen it, so I don't remember exactly. But I remember really liking the third act. When they get to the house, I'm a huge haunted house fan, so it was like a haunted house attraction. There was a witch, there was all these crazy rooms and things happening, and it's very claustrophobic, which always works for me. And then when they go underground, and it's like the Descent is another movie where it's like, are they just going to die trapped underground? And then I was just so tense. And then when she gets out, so I mean, a lot of it really worked for me, but I think overall the movie didn't work.
I think Mitch Bain, you seem to drop a bit of scorn on it when in the minisode, when we mentioned it the other day on the minisode.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, Mitch. To be honest, I think I owe it a second watch, in as much as I'm a bit like this, where if the second act of something really annoys me, then I have a tendency to be a little bit blind to the merits of a decent third act. Because by this time, if I've been sitting and something's been trying my patience for half an hour, I feel like it can sometimes be a little bit difficult to talk me back from the brink of that, regardless of how good your last 20 minutes, your last half hour might be. So I know it's on Netflix now, so I should probably just revisit it and just kind of reevaluate, because I agree that the way it's set up and the way the first half hour or so functions really works for me. What about you, Andy?
Yeah, I'm actually in the same, more or less in the exact same boat as Mitch W. Again, I thought it kind of came good, but on the whole, I felt it was a bit of a misfire. I thought the stuff, the kind of descent-y stuff, the stuff on the subterranean tunnel things was really strong, but on the whole, I actually watched all 3 of these films.
So you did end up doing that?
Yeah, I did.
Watched all 3?
Yeah, I watched all 3 of them, and actually, I kind of think the 3 of them work quite well together.
You dick, now I have to do it.
You don't have to do it, but I wouldn't say that it makes any one of them any better or any worse to watch the 3 of them. In fact, it makes the original look fucking amazing. I feel like the 3 of them work really well together, but the Barrett one, I would say, is my least favourite of the 3.
Okay. I feel like I should probably watch all of them again before I try and do a ranking, because I think that I'm not under any illusions that the first one isn't the best one. And this Book of Shadows played out better on reflection than I expected it to. Mitch, I think I'm not about to hold this up as being some kind of classic, but I think you made an interesting case about what it is that works for you. I think that the notion of video never lying film does, I like. Mm-hmm. And that's probably kind of that hit on something that I hadn't necessarily thought of, I don't think.
Definitely. I mean, I thought it was a great setup and great payoff. I mean, the director tells you at the beginning of the movie what he's trying to say, and then he says it at the end. And, I mean, he is commenting on, he's basically telling people that still have the Blair Witch hysteria, there is no witch.
Such a shout.
So, essentially doing what the sheriff does, fuck off home.
Exactly.
And leave these poor people alone. Like,
that's a great shout. Mitch, before we wrap up, I want to touch on a couple of things and just what's going on with you. And we met a couple of years ago.
Fright Fest
2016. Yeah, Shepherd's Bush. The world premiere, right, in Knucklebones.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, which was a great. That was one of my favorite. That was my favorite screening that year, I think.
That's so nice of you to say that.
It was a great audience to be a part of, and I think it seemed like you had a great time too. And I feel like everyone really enjoyed the movie.
Oh yes, everyone from that screening, it was so amazing. I loved it. Couldn't have gone better. You guys are amazing horror fans over there.
Oh
man,
Fright Fest family. I felt like family.
Good, yeah. Welcome back anytime.
Yeah,
man.
you feel like family quite quickly amongst the Fright Fest folk. I think. I feel like it's quite an accepting group of people, pretty inclusive.
Definitely. And Paul and the guys that run the festival are amazing. I mean, amazing.
I think they're also, I think it kind of benefits from the fact that they're very different horror fans as well.
Yeah, different from each other.
Yeah, very different from each other. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. They're so prone to disagreement, and it means you're bound to get kind of like a pretty interesting card every year. And I think 2016 was no exception. But that was a fun time, and I think that everyone who hasn't checked it out should make the time to check out Knucklebones as well. But
now, is it available in the UK yet? Knucklebones. I know there's a German.
Yes,
it is available.
It is, and it is surprisingly. Germany loves Knucklebones. We thought that
the German edition of it's incredible.
They've done 2 different media books with 2 different covers, and then the upcoming Blu-ray cover. I love it. I love it. We thought we'd get banned because we have Nazis and swastikas and all that, and apparently they love it when you kill Nazis in Germany. So
that's just, I guess that checks out. What's next, Mitch? What's going on? You got anything you want to tell us about?
Yes, I just directed a segment for a horror anthology.
Okay.
It's called For We Are Many.
Oh, yeah.
It's from Hex Media.
Yeah, our friend Laurie Brewster.
Laurie Brewster, yes, amazing guy. And each segment of the film is about a different demon.
Okay.
So either based on real world mythology or completely made up. Mine is a completely made up one, based on a haunted house on my street growing up.
Nice.
Called Eli's House. Yes.
Well, that's cool.
Cool. Okay. So still waiting on release news and all that for that, yeah?
No release news. We should hear something in the fall.
Cool. Okay. That's an exciting thing to be a part of. It's a good piece of news to bring to the table, man.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of directors from Fright Fest that year when I was there. So,
Mitch, thanks a lot for taking the time to do this with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All the best. You never know. Maybe see when we see you at Fright Fest again.
Hopefully soon. Director's cut. We want it now.
Yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, and you never know. For We Are Many might wind up at either back at Fright Fest or at Glasgow Fright Fest.
Glasgow Fright Fest, yeah.
Oh, I'm definitely coming back.
Yes.
Excellent.
For sure.
Mitch, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
So, Mitch Wilson of Knucklebones fame, making, I would say, a pretty interesting argument about Blair Witch 2 there.
Yeah, and it's not the terrible film everybody makes it out to be.
I think that, like I said back there, I'm not going to hold it up to be some kind of classic.
Because it's not.
No. But I think that, like, he came at it from an angle that I hadn't necessarily looked at it from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I would quite like to. If this director's cut happened, then I would be quite interested to see what is in there, what's left out of there, perhaps more interestingly.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cinematic onion.
Layers.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Layers upon layers upon layers. And an interesting kind of story overall, I suppose. Not more about the actual kind of production of the film, I guess, is a more interesting story than perhaps the story of the film.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true. To be honest, yeah, like probably like, and I think that a director's cut or seeing something that would be a little bit closer to Joe Berlinger's original vision might be kind of interesting and might answer a few of those questions as well.
Yeah.
So we have had a good week of feedback again.
All right, okay.
When we announced Blair Witch 2, we had a couple of people getting in touch. I'll take a look at the Facebook and Instagrams for this one.
Okay.
And on Facebook, we had a Joanne Margaret Alexander.
Right.
And she said, yes, I love the sequel. This is going to be a must-listen for me. So presumably not much convincing being necessary there for Joanne, maybe?
No.
And and possibly a little bit more in line with my opinion on Instagram, we had Faye Ellis4 saying, I really like Blair Witch 2. It's hilarious.
Again, wrong reasons, perhaps.
Yeah, but I would say certainly some of the levels I enjoyed it on would have been that.
Over in the cesspit that is Twitter.
Oh no.
We had some decent stuff. We didn't have anybody say that the Blair Witch 2 was shit, which
no, actually people have been pretty pretty up for it, and pretty accepting of it so far. But yeah, what was coming out of Twitter?
At Nazi saying, guess I'll have to hunt down Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows, and then possibly my favourite hashtag we've had since we started this, and coming off the back of the Leviathan episode, which is Go Seacocks.
Go Seacocks.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't mean anything to you, then you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
So go back to episode 5. We'll wait.
Yeah, go back and see what Seacocks has to do with the show to date.
And anything else on Twitter?
Oh, yeah, plenty. At Dalgano Barry says, this should be a doozy. I actually still have the original 2-disc DVD of this. No idea where it is, but for my sins, I do have it.
So presumably and hopefully Barry's dug that out, giving it a wee rewatch.
Yeah, a multiple rewatch, but like we did.
Perhaps, yeah.
Random Elements again in a slightly more upbeat tweet than we've become accustomed to.
Mm-hmm.
Says quite simply, we're disposable teens, we're disposable teens, we're disposable. Now, I would imagine that's in reference to the opening credits.
Or just
a Marilyn Manson fan.
Yeah, or possibly just a commentary on the film's treatment of its characters.
Or a commentary on the youth of today.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow.
Perhaps he's gone that deep.
That's heavy going stuff. We got anything else? Or can we take a look back at some of the other episodes? Anybody get in touch with those?
Yeah, I can. What we'll do is I'll jump remaining in Twitter here in Twitterland back to Rawhead Rex.
Okay.
Back to simpler times. At Mad Science Films,
Mm-hmm.
kind of throws a compliment my way here and then negates it. It's the kind of the shit sandwich, but without the additional good without the additional good comment.
It says like shit on toast rather than like a shit sandwich.
Yeah, it's like shit on toast. That's exactly what it's like.
Hit me.
He says, "There's only one man who can get me to rewatch #RawheadRex.
Okay.
And that man is Andy Makes Stuff." That's me. Of at Strong Violent PC. Great podcast, even if Andy is wrong about detention.
Yeah! That's what I'm talking about.
Fake news, wrong.
Mad Science Films, you're the man. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate
He's disposable.
it. History will remember me as the victor. You got anything on Leviathan?
Yeah.
Yep.
Darren Gaskell again.
Good man.
Yep, we all know Darren's got an opinion about everything, which is great.
Yeah, particularly enjoy. He's got some opinions on detention, but he's got some extreme opinions about She's All That.
That was amazing. Much better character development than most genre flicks.
Okay.
Even you, six-pack, you horrid... I can't, hang on. Oh. Much better character development than most genre flicks. Even you, six-pack, you horrid grubby perv.
Excellent.
Pretty damn good cast. Decent effects if you ignore the monster at the end. Agreed wholeheartedly. And some genuinely tense moments. I really enjoyed it.
Good.
Coming down positively pretty much across the board on Leviathan.
Yeah, I think, he kind of falls in line with our opinion on Six Pack, which I feel kind of validated by.
But he is indeed a horrid grubby perv.
He is a horrid grubby perv.
Yeah.
I have a Facebook one on Leviathan.
Right.
We've got James Patrick Duffy.
All right, okay.
Got in touch. And he said, as you boys know, I'm concise in my reviews. Leviathan was ace. Can't believe I'd never been exposed to it before. Keep up the good work.
Oh, thanks very much.
So thanks for getting in touch, Paul. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you just in general for being nice. I've got a couple of other things.
God, is that about detention again?
It's not about detention. No. You would have heard about it by now if it was more glowy detention stuff. But earlier on in the week, before we dropped the mini-sode where we revealed that it was going to be Mitch, it was going to be Blair Witch, you invited people to guess what the next film was going to be.
Yeah, that opened up to a whole world of madness.
Yeah, it did. And I just want to touch on a couple of things, because a couple of people mentioned stuff that I think would be fun to do in the future.
Some of them I would just do right away, if I'm honest.
Well, I mean, Tenshi-san 73, our old
Chris
pal.
Angel?
Yeah, got in touch and said, Hell Comes to Frogtown.
Yes!
Maniac Cop.
Yes!
Night Riders.
Okay, yes!
Frankenhooker.
Amazing.
I would do Frankenhooker. I would do Frankenhooker on the
Yeah,
episode.
it cost you.
Night of the Comet.
Okay.
And a Cohen and Tate.
Interesting that all of these are available on Arrow Video.
Really?
Yeah, every one of those
There
titles.
you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps a collector. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that's perhaps what's happened there.
Yeah, maybe. We've also got Dalgarno Barry getting back in touch on Twitter.
Okay.
Saying that he would quite like to see In the Mouth of Madness.
I replied to that. That would be amazing.
That would be pretty sweet. It's also, I would say that because I did have a wee look and it would qualify. The critical reception of it is such that if somebody brought it on, it would definitely be a valid shout. So
to any upcoming guests who might be listening and they're struggling to come up with a film, there you go. Bring in The Mouth of Madness.
Yeah, even if you're just watching it for the first time, just watch it and then come on with it. It's fine. We're not here to judge.
We don't know. We don't know your history.
Yeah, exactly. So. You could be fucking anybody. Thank you very much, as always, for joining us tonight for episode 6, and particular thanks, of course, to Mr. Mitch Wilson for
indeed.
Swinging by and telling us a lot about how much he loves Blair Witch 2, and a little bit about Knucklebones and his involvement in...
Yeah, I really liked you digging into his relationship with Knucklebones and perceived connections between Knucklebones and Blair Witch.
I thought
that was a pretty interesting angle. Obviously, backfired terribly on you because it had absolutely no bearing.
Well, I got it completely wrong, but I tried.
And trying, admirable.
Yeah. Trying is the first step towards failure. Thanks so much for getting in touch and for talking Knucklebones, and also for We Are Many with us as well tonight. And if you want to get in touch with any feedback, of course we do like doing these at the end of the episodes. If you want to get in touch, then you can get in touch on Facebook and Instagram. That's at Strong Language Violent Scenes. You can tweet us at Strong Violent PC. And you can also email stronglanguageviolentscenes@gmail.com. So we'll be back on Monday. Took me a second there. We'll be back on Monday with another mini-sode where we'll announce the guest and film for next week, and probably also have a little bit of chat about some peripheral shite as well.
Yeah, I can only imagine that's exactly what will happen.
There are the cards.
If we're playing to pass form, then that's certainly what will happen. We'll talk a lot of shite about some shite.
I think, yes, talking shite is definitely on brand. So join us then if you can. In the meantime, don't forget that it is better to die a hero than live as food in a world of chuds. Good night.
Good night.
You've been listening to Strong Language and Violent Scenes with Andy Stewart and Mitch Bain. Strong Language and Violent Scenes theme by Mitch Bain, production and artwork by Andy Stewart. Find us on Stitcher, iTunes and Podbean.